The National Farm Machinery Show, huh?
You know what? First trip to Kentucky, actually, believe it or not. Yeah, and it's I like it here.
Yep.
Yeah, it's great. There's this is almost the size of a farm. This place, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of acres in here, man.
Make a hell of a shop, wouldn't it?
If I could have 1/100th of this for a shop, I would be happy. You know what I mean? Yeah. But no, yeah, very cool show, and definitely first time here. There's a lot of guys from our area. You know, we got guys that deal Brock dryers, and obviously the Mandako guys that I'm here with, and a few others are just like, hey, like, you've got to see this. This is a huge show. And once I got here, it's just like, yes, it is a huge show. It's pretty cool, man. Yeah.
So for the listeners, we're here with Quick Dick McDick. Quick Dick, I don't actually know your first name, so.
So it's Dixon DeLorme, Dick for short, and that's where the whole Quick Dick thing came from or whatever. But you got to be careful if you Google it; it'll take you to some websites that I'm not affiliated with whatsoever.
So somehow my dad was looking for gooseneck trailer parts, and he ended up on some of those websites. I'm like, Dad, how did you screw it up? You were looking for a hitch, and you ended up looking at, in his words, just cock and titties everywhere.
That happens. Yeah, the internet will take you to some crazy places nowadays. And then he was probably like, you know what, while I'm here, I might as well scroll a little bit, right? No big deal.
Now he's like, why does the computer keep freezing? Like, well, Dad, you've got a sexually transmitted viral disease on your computer.
Yeah, on your computer. Don't worry. I'm sure it doesn't hurt when you pee right now, but stranger things have happened, right? Yeah, no, it's crazy because, man, the funniest thing happened to me when I was coming into, because I flew out of Canada. Like, you got to fly to Atlanta first, and then
that makes sense.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Especially if you're flying on a Canadian airline, and then fly back to Louisville from Atlanta. So I had 2 hours in Atlanta, and usually once I get like far enough out of Canada, like nobody kind of knows who I am, kind of thing, right? So you get down, I'm like, oh shit, like I'm flying undercover here or whatever. It's all good. I just sit down, have a beer in peace, and get caught up on some stuff. So like I'm walking into, like, I had to go to the B concourse. Like I'm walking into this concourse, and there's some guy standing against the wall, and he's like, hey cowboy, and I'm like,
oh fuck.
Yeah, I'm like, fuck off, man. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, and he's like, I'll buy you a beer, and I'm like, no thanks, I'm good. You know what I mean? Like, whatever you're doing here, I don't want anything to do with it. He's like, no, hey, I'll buy you a beer. I'm from Saskatoon, which is in Saskatchewan. And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, maybe you're not a freak. And then I go walking over, and he's like, I didn't know what to call you because I don't know your name, and I didn't want to holler out for Quick Dick across the Atlanta airport. I was like, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I hear you about it.
Yeah, I never thought about that. It could be interesting.
So then after that, I forgave him immediately, and then we went, drank a bunch of beer, and talked about how we're basically cousins because we're from the same province. So,
yeah. So, Saskatchewan is where you're from, right?
Yeah, man.
So what kind of farming operation do you guys have up there?
So I farm with a guy. I actually like work for him and then run my farm within his kind of thing. And there's so we run about 4,000 acres of arable land, and then we got 350 head cow calf operation.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we do canola, barley, wheat, field peas, oats. Usually what's in our rotation kind of thing, and then we rotate alfalfa and a lot of different grazing varieties around there too.
A little bit more diverse than what we're doing here. I mean, corn, beans, and wheat.
Yeah. Yeah, we got. There's. You know what? There's definitely a lot of corn things going on down here.
Yeah, this is mostly a corn and bean show.
Yeah, but like, you know what? It's kind of, I can't remember who I was talking to, but they're like DeKalb. You know, well, you probably don't know DeKalb. Like they're one of the hugest, sellers of corn seed. I was like, no, like DeKalb in Canada, yes, but they just sell canola, not corn up there. Like, it's the same thing. But yeah, canola is like corn in Saskatchewan or whatever. Okay. Like everybody grows it. The only corn varieties you see a lot of guys use for silage, and then a lot of it will be like we do, like lots of guys will do silage grazing. So corn grazing, we call it, where they'll just plant corn and then let it snow and everything, and then they just use electric wires and just push cattle through it, kind of thing. Yeah. So, but it's like, that's kind of the coolest thing about being down here, is like, it is like different world, night and day, farming down here than it is up north, right? Yeah, and it's so cool. Like, that's kind of one of the coolest part of this stuff, is you come down and see all the different shit that's kicking around. It's awesome. Yeah.
So if you go like an hour east of here to Lexington, you get out of farm country, it's horse country. There's just horses everywhere.
Seriously?
Oh yeah, I mean like expensive horses, like racing horses. That's where the Kentucky Derby's at.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, exactly. So we've been trained at home is that if you ever, if you're gonna date a girl, make sure she's not on horses, because you'll go bankrupt. Yeah. So we just try and stick to farming and maybe the odd barrel racer here or there, and like that's about as far as it goes, right?
Yeah. So I mean, for the listeners, you came in wearing a cowboy hat. Might be something to do with why you were recognized in an airport.
Actually, congratulations! You're the first guy to get me to take my cowboy hat off in here or whatever. But yeah, it's like I grew up on a community pasture lease or whatever, and like all I ever knew how to do since I was a kid was ride rope and into cattle and everything. Went and worked oil and gas in northern Alberta, Canada, if anybody knows where that is, and then got way up into like northern BC, into the Northwest Territories, and even closer up into the Arctic Circle and stuff. So like I've seen a lot of like the northern part of my country, and then just kind of got into grain. I never had a lot to do with grain aside from baling straw behind combines when we were in cows or whatever. And just kind of started getting into grain with this guy that I farm with here now, and just kind of opened up a whole new window to this whole other side of agriculture, and it's awesome. I love it, man.
So let's back up here. You just went to the Arctic Circle and just pushed over that shit. Like, So what you say you're working gas and oil fields up there?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it's kind of cool. Like in northern Alberta, northern BC, and Canada, like there's a lot of shale gas move, just like kind of in the Dakotas here in the States or whatever. It's just kind of different depth, different zones. It's all shale gas, right? And there's a lot of hydraulic fracturing going on up there. So I dealt with a lot of crews that dealt with that, cement, coil tubing. And yeah, we'd go up. The wintertime was the coolest thing. Is you'd go up into these northern parts of Canada, and if you get there in the summertime, like it's muskeg, and you can't access any of this stuff by land. Because
so is muskeg just a type of soil?
It's kind of, but like muskeg is just like this peat, mossy, dirt topsoil that nothing really grows in. That if you put anything heavy on it, it sinks and you'll never find it again.
Okay.
Yeah, and so
but
like
it freezes.
Yeah. So, but like when it freezes, that's when they go in. They do all their work in the wintertime, so they'll plow all these lease roads out and do all this different stuff, and you go in and you'll drill or you'll frack or whatever it is you need to do. They'll go in and try and get all their well maintenance stuff done through the winter, and then when summer comes, everybody just leaves.
So when you're doing that, how cold is it?
So the cool thing, I think it's minus 40 or 41 is where 41 Fahrenheit is 40 Celsius. It's where they start evening out or whatever, but lots of the times that you're up there, like you spend below 50 degrees.
Celsius?
Negative 50 Celsius, yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's cold, man.
Yeah.
No, Jesus, don't help you up there, man. You're on your own, right? Yeah, it gets cold, but like it's the fun part of it, right? And the reason I always like doing all that stuff way up north is because like there's not just a bunch of weakling little piss pants people come up there and think they're going to make it go, but you got to know what you're doing. And if you don't, you'll die. You know what I mean? Which is kind of cool, But the other cool thing about being up there is it's a lot different than a lot of other places that you see when you get into a lot of metro areas, kind of thing. You never drive past somebody that's on the side of the road up there that's having trouble, because you are like, everyone says, "Oh, I'm in the middle of nowhere." You're in the middle of nowhere up there. There's nowhere.
Like you could be the only thing saving their life.
That's exactly it. You never drive by somebody up there. So that's kind of another cool thing about there. Like you depend on each other, and it's cool, man. Yeah, and it's cold, but it's beautiful in its own way, Like there's the Mackenzie Delta mountain ranges and stuff up there, and the Arctic itself can be a beautiful place. But when I say Arctic, like everyone's like they think just glaciers and ice floats and all that stuff. It's really not. Like there's mountainous regions, there's a lot of trees grow up there and different things, and it's not what everybody pictures it to be. It's pretty cool in its own way. Yeah, coolest part of my life. Yeah.
Man, that's crazy. I'm just trying to fathom working in negative 50.
It's different. You got to run all your equipment's got to run different. They have different like a lot of the camps that are up there. Like they got big propane bullets that they use for heating the camps that you stay in, but the propane basically won't flow at minus 50. So you got so you got to have a parachute over these huge propane pigs or whatever, and you got frost fighters blowing in this parachute to keep the propane at a temperature that'll heat the camp. Like it's fucked, man. Yeah, but cool at the same time. You know what I mean?
How do you keep things from gelling? Just lots of fuel treatment?
Yeah, fuel treatment. But I mean, like we run a winter diesel up in Canada there, and you keep fuel treatment in them and everything. And like once you get something running when it's minus 50 C, you don't shut it off. Like nothing shuts off. You shut it off to check the oil and make sure everything's okay, and then you just start it and keep it running. Like big commercial trucks that we drive, you park them, check your oil, start them, idle them up to 1,200-1,300 RPM, and you don't shut them off.
So I got a new GMC pickup, and the son of a bitch shuts off after 20 minutes of inactivity.
Yeah, that's not going to work up there. Don't take it to the Arctic Circle. You will be permanently inactive.
So up there, any experience with the ice road?
Yes. It's all ice roads, and it's hilarious because are you referring like ice road truckers kind of thing? It just pisses me off watching that show. It's like watching any of this shit though. You know what I mean? Like they're like, oh, he's gonna come up here and he's gonna have to put his tire chains on to get up that hill, and I'm sitting there watching. I'm like, yeah, no shit. So he's gonna take 5 minutes to put his tire chains on, then go up the hill or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's just They just try and over-dramatize it, and there's always some kind of, somebody had a bad day or a wheel bearing or this or that, and it's every day. Like and it's really not that big of a deal. Yeah, but I don't know. It's the same with any of this stuff. I'm sure lots of people that like watch, Cops or Duck Dynasty or Yukon Gold or any of this stuff, they're just like, oh, come on, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. So I got a buddy who's a logger, and I was like, so where's your yarder? He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? I was like, well, I've watched X-Men. Where's your yarder? He's like, hey, we're in Ohio. Like, I don't need a yarder. I'm like, well, according to X-Men, you need a fucking yarder. I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah, straight up, man. But like that's the funny thing about reality shows. And in all honesty, we do it this. I think I can't remember the guy's name, but I think he's over in the UK or whatever. It's like a reality farming show where he's coming in and trying to learn how to farm and everything. And they're talking about running over a mouse with the tire. And I didn't want to kill the mouse. And then he pulls forward. Oh, the mouse is alive. And I'm like, this ain't a farm.
Yeah, you need to go stomp that mouse. It's gonna shit in your cab.
That thing's gonna shit in your cab, tear your roof liner apart. And if you think it was an opportunity to kill that little bastard when you had the chance, you're about to pay the piper for it, right? Yeah. Oh, that kind of stuff's funny, man.
Yeah. So, how does Canada work? Like, are you guys part of the UK, or like, do you care who the Queen is?
So, like, that
whole thing is confusing.
So the Queen's dead now, so it doesn't matter. Whatever,
well, there's a king now, right?
Yeah, but now there's King Charles. But it's like, yeah, definitely, like, initially, like, Canada was a colony of the UK or whatever. Like, technically, if you want to say we're still, like, in the Commonwealth or whatever, where, we swear allegiance or you use God Save the Queen and all this different shit in Canada, and she's still on her money, and it's the Court of Queen's Bench, and we have a lieutenant governor and a lieutenant governor that represent the Queen on different levels and everything kind of thing. But I mean,
so is your prime minister answer to England?
Like, no, like technically no, that's not how it works kind of thing.
Is it England or the UK? Because that's two different entities too,
yeah,
right?
No, it's the UK, but it's a monarchy, right? And like, so it's just a thing that's just kind of there as a part of how things used to be set up, and we still kind of honor it, but eventually, like, they have nothing to do with our government or parliament or how it works kind of thing, but they still have representatives there and still have a glorious number of ways that they can absolutely and completely piss away millions of dollars getting absolutely nothing done. You know what I mean?
That's what I was thinking. Like, I went to the Capitol in D.C. one time, and I'm looking at all these buildings. I'm like, well, there's several $1 billion, like, just in buildings.
Right? Yeah. Can't you guys just fucking build a lean-to on it or something? You know what I mean?
Pole barn wasn't in the budget, huh? But we did marble buildings. I get it. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Oh, yeah.
And build a statue for yourself, too.
Yeah,
like, we all know how great you are.
Yeah, it's true, man. But our government's really backwards, though, too, and, like, how it works. We're first past the post-electoral system, and it's just a disaster. Like, electorally, how our federal government works is they have a certain amount of seats that are spread across by population and a bunch of different crazy rules that, I mean, it would take us forever to go over it. But if you just, like, if anybody's familiar with the shape and the size of the province of Saskatchewan, it's pretty easy. It's just like a big, long rectangle or whatever, right?
You're basically above Montana and North Dakota,
That's exactly right.
right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Okay. And so Saskatchewan's got quite a big area, and we contribute quite a bit to the GDP of Canada, right?
But not a big population.
Not a big population, right? So we're 1.2 million people, right? So we have 15 seats that we vote. Then if you go over to a tiny little island of Prince Edward Island over on the far, coast of Canada, they're not at our population. They're about a quarter of the size of what we are, and they have the exact same amount of seats that we do in Saskatchewan. So it's just really broken. And then Ontario and Quebec all have a whole bunch more seats than we do, and they try and disperse it through population. But, like, it just gets really crazy. And at the end of the day, basically the whole country ends up with a government that these tiny two little pieces of Canada want. You know what I mean?
That's why when I hear people, like, in the United States talk about, well, we need to get rid of the Senate. Why does Montana need 2 senators whenever they only have 1 million people in the whole state? Because of what you just said.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
So that's one thing I do like about your social media is you give no shits to dive into all of this stuff on it.
I don't care. I don't care about anything. And that's like when you ask me earlier, hey, is there anything we can't talk about? I'm like, no, I'll talk about anything.
I kind of figured there was. I just being nice.
But it's so, like, I try and keep it as I call it a variety show or whatever, right? Like, one day we'll just be strictly talking about farming. One day I'll talk about gun bans. The next day I'll do a kid's video on how calves are born.
Those are little dickies or
little quicks.
Little quicks.
Yeah, never call anybody little dicks. Yeah, it doesn't work out that good. But yeah, and so I just kind of try and change it up all the time or whatever, and then I'll dive into politics quite a bit. But I don't know. I think there's a lot of people, and that's not just for Canada. I think it's in the States here too. There's a lot of people that feel that their voices aren't heard, or that they're the only person out there that's thinking how they think, kind of thing. And I think it comforts people that might think the same as me, that they're like, oh, at least I'm not the only one out there that thinks that, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'll try and do a lot of videos in fun ways that people that maybe don't understand what we do on farm or how government policy affects us in rural Saskatchewan, Canada, they're out of touch with it, have no idea how things work. They would never be able to fathom that our closest grocery store is 20 miles away, and when it's 50 below outside, we still have to be able to get there, or 45 or 30 below, or call it 40 below, because it's the easiest way for everybody to be like, it's the same temperature.
Yeah.
Well, we still got to get 20 miles into town to get this, and we've got to dry our grain, we've got to heat our barns, we have to do all this different stuff. And like, I mean, we got this crazy thing I know we heard about in Canada called the carbon tax.
I have.
And it's the most mental thing on planet Earth.
Do you mind describing some of that for some of the listeners?
Yeah, no. So carbon tax is basically our federal government has said, hey, there needs to be a price put on pollution, and so they take anything that they deem creates CO2.
Does that include cows?
Well, that's coming. We're fighting it right now, but and methane emissions or whatever. So like a commercial truck that trucks goods across Canada, and Canada's
that can't shut off in the winter,
right? And Canada is the second biggest country on the planet, right? And we are very sparsely populated. You know, we've got huge distances between all these areas, so we depend on commercial transportation. Well, they say, well, hey, you're polluting when you're driving food to people, so it's going to cost you. It's going to be up to, I think we're going to be up to 14 cents per liter of fuel that commercial trucks burn. They just pay that in a tax that they call a carbon tax, because you're polluting. And then we're going to take that money and we're going to make different investments in the country of Canada to make it greener, kind of thing. But then all these companies start tacking that on to what they bring. So like if you got food processors, that are burning natural gas, you have to pay a carbon tax on the natural gas that you burn. If we're drying grain on a farm, we have to pay carbon tax on that.
So you're paying that carbon tax several times for the same bushel.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it just keeps going and going and going and going down the line. And then even when you take it right back to the start of the crop, when we get our seed trucked to the farm and we get it cleaned, and then we have to buy our fertilizer, everything that comes to us, we pay a carbon tax on. Then we grow it, sequester 33 megatons of carbon while we grow this crop.
That's one thing I don't think a lot of people realize.
And then we ship it out, and once we ship it back out, then you're paying a carbon tax on both ends. And everybody's like, "But you guys don't have to pay a carbon tax on farm fuel." I was like, "Yeah, but on natural gas we do, on propane we do, on everything else." And we're net negative in agriculture, but nobody cares, and they just keep putting it on. And every April 1st, they just keep jacking it up. And
you guys are unable to pass that on to who you're selling to.
Yeah, exactly. We're just price takers on both ends. Well, we're price payers for inputs, and then we're price takers on what we sell for. And I love you guys down here, but you guys are our competition in a lot of markets, and you guys don't pay carbon tax. You know what I mean?
Not, no.
Yeah, so we got
not
this,
yet.
Yeah, but and hopefully never, right? So we're going to keep fighting against ours. I don't know whether I think we need our current government to leave for this to happen. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. This is one of the many things that our government's up to, that it just punishes people that live in rural areas that have no other options, And now you get over to the east coast of Canada, and lots of people use like heating oil to heat their homes and everything, and like they're taxing that, they tax this, they tax that, tax, and then people that process and refine fossil fuels or petroleum products in Canada, they pay carbon tax on top of it. So like it just keeps getting passed down the line, and we just keep paying for all this shit, and then everybody's like, yeah, we can't figure out why things are so expensive. Well, why do you think, fuckers? Yeah. So yeah, hopefully that's a Cole's Notes edition of it, but it gets to be a pretty deep dive into a lot of it. They've got a lot of people in metro areas that are convinced that they get more back than they pay on their utilities, but nobody can connect the dots to if they go down to the hardware store and buy something, or if they go to the grocery store and buy something. Like there's a cost associated with this carbon tax that you're paying that you don't see on your grocery bills, and you're just like, yeah, I can't figure out why groceries are so expensive. But yay for the carbon tax, because I get a check back from the government saying that I get back more than I pay. Yeah, no, you don't. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's kind of a crazy thing, but I guess we do lots of crazy things in Canada.
So have any of your social media videos, have they brought much awareness to that, or have you seen any kind of impact?
Yeah, I think I get a lot of members of parliament and members of legislative assembly, which are like government representatives, that reach out to me every now and then. But I think I did one on I call it the Canadian fertilizer ban, where they were looking at a 30% overall reduction in NO2 emissions from fertilizer use in Canada, and just kind of like switched it around to just show exactly what they were trying to do, and how we already do a lot of things really good, like a lot of zero till with crops that we have, and lots of guys are starting to intercrop, and even just the technology, which is a lot of the stuff that you see here at this farm show. Just how we're already like world leaders in NO2 emissions, and
especially, like you say, especially compared to the rest of the world. I mean,
yeah, and I think that's a big problem that we have, is like there's so many people, even within Canada, but a lot of people in any countries that start bashing of what we do in agriculture. Like they need to come out and see what we do and experience it, kind of thing, and they'd realize that maybe things are a little bit different than what you get taught in school, or or what Greta Thunberg teaches you, kind of thing. Well, like,
how dare you?
I like how you can bring that out. Yeah. But yeah, so that one really took off, and that got a lot of traction and got a lot of people talking. And I think that's important. You know, I'm not expecting to change the world with anything that I do, but if you can spark conversation, and every now and then when I do some of these videos, I'll get a handful, 10, 12, sometimes 200-300 people out of the 500,000 that watch it or whatever will reach out to me and be like, hey man, I didn't realize that that's how it worked, and thanks for explaining it that way, you know. One completely unrelated to any government policy was just like, believe it or not, a lady out of California sent me a picture of her 2 little kids watching my little quicks one that I did of how oats were growing, and she's like, we eat oatmeal every morning, and had no idea we had no idea. We
thought Kroger's made them.
Right. Exactly, right? It just, well, the store makes them, doesn't it? They just come out of the back of the store. Yeah. So, you know, do I change a lot of things? Maybe not on the grand spectrum of things, but man, I'll tell you what, if you can change 2, 3, 4 people at a time,
right.
If those 2, 3, 4 people, with how social media works nowadays, they'll go to 2, 3, or 4 other people and be like, hey, did you know this is where your oats come from?
Right. Yeah.
So, you know what, maybe you change 4 or 5, 500 might turn into 2,500 pretty fast just by association kind of thing. So, yeah, I don't know. I try and look at it that way and try not to focus too much on the people that just hate on me in my comment section, right?
I've always thought, like, you're never going to change someone who's dead set. Like, you're never going to change someone who's dead set on killing the environment.
Some of them are not changeable.
But
yeah,
my feeling is if we don't, voice what we are doing, the people that are looking for answers are only going to see that side of it. They're not going to see our side of it.
Yeah, man. So, like, do you get a lot of shade thrown at you in, like, comment sections and everything? Or
sometimes. I actually made a video. It was creatively titled. I mean, it was the end of the year. We were buying inputs. We do this every year. I mean, we've got this much money left in the checking account. We need this many inputs for this year. We made this much money. And we were pretty dumb not to go buy those inputs and use that as a tax deduction.
Absolutely, of course you will.
Every company in the United States does that. I mean,
farming,
pretty
anything,
common business practice. Well, I was trying to go broke the last day of the year and not pay taxes. And the amount of people that, farmers get all this subsidy, and here's this guy just trying to get out of taxes. That kind of shit. I mean, it's that.
It's a business.
Yeah,
right?
and I don't think people realize that. I think they just think that we're dummies driving around with tractors playing in the dirt.
You know what? So I don't think people look at farming as a business, but like another big part of it is I don't think people have the opportunity to look at something like that and even look how they manage taxes and like how people donate to charities and do that. Like just with your personal taxes, buy RSPs. Sorry, I got to talk Canadian here because I don't know how it works in the U.S. But buy RSPs. There's a lot of different things that you can do with your money to give you a tax break. And people won't look at it that way when it's farmers just because it's on such a big scale. But I don't think people understand the finances involved with farming. They can't process $870 a ton for fertilizer kind of thing. Just the scope of it and the size of farms and everything. They can't process just how much money it takes to invest in doing this. Like, we're some of the biggest gamblers on planet Earth.
That's what my dad says anytime someone talks to me, like, I don't need to go to Vegas. Just throw it in the dirt.
Do it every year. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, well, do you got any advice for someone trying to farm? Like, should I go get an agronomy degree? I was like, well, if you're going to go the college route, absolutely not. I would highly advise you taking a business class.
Ag business, get at it. Yeah, and that's the thing, and I think that's a cool thing about technology. A lot of things nowadays is, people can reach out to people that have degrees, and we're connected pretty close with. And you can find somebody that specializes in what kind of crop you're trying to do, and that's all good. You can find somebody really fast that can help you with that. But you, as the owner or organizer of your operation, you need to have your finances in check so that you can make your equipment payments, your land payments, and all your what are you doing with inputs for the next year, and how much tax am I going to have to pay next year if I don't buy this right now, kind of thing. It's all this business, man.
Right.
Yeah.
That said, did you go to college?
No.
Me neither.
No, I barely got out of school.
I went to college and dropped out.
Did you? I was gonna go, but I went and started working oil and gas right out of high school, and I was like, hey, this is really good money. I'm just gonna keep doing this. Fuck school, you know what I mean? And then just kind of stuck with it. So,
I mean, that is one thing that's really nice about growing up when we're growing up. I mean, there's lots of bad things, like you're talking about politically, and I think just half the country is a lot crazier than they used to be.
Yep.
Absolutely. At least in our country.
No, it's no different in Canada, man.
But one thing it is nice about the access to information right now, I mean, our school, when I was growing up in high school, there was no accounting classes. Like, that was all information that I sought out after I graduated.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge advantage young people have now trying to get into agriculture. I mean, you can find so much stuff now.
Totally is, and I think there's two ways to look at that. Is way number one is absolutely, and a lot of times kids will come and ask me what they're going to do, or how do I do this, or how do I do that, and I'll be like, just start looking into it and start calling people, and eventually you're going to find somebody that's going to be able to help you out. Like say, we're connected like never before with people.
Right.
On the other side of that, it's real easy to just jump down the wrong rabbit hole on the internet, and then all of a sudden you're just getting filled full of a whole bunch of terrible shit that looks legit that you think you can go with or whatever. And I think that's a big reason why a lot of our country, your guys' country, just kind of hate each other a little bit.
Yep.
It's just because I've got my tribe and I've got my well I went down, and I don't want to talk to anybody else again. Like we were just talking about with some environmental activists, or that, you know, mono-farming's killing the country or whatever, you know what I mean? And like my big sense or that is like, the farm that we're on right now, the one piece that we rent there, has been farmed for 120 years.
Yeah.
Is that not a testament to the sustainability of agriculture? You know what I mean? Yeah. So,
I
yes.
think we're trying to poison the world, or like I make my living on the world. Like I mean, this is what I why would I poison something that produces my income?
But like, yeah, that's just it. Yeah. So my business plan actually is to just rape this for 10 years and then burn it. Like, how does that make any sense? You know what I mean? Yeah. So, you know, when you put it into context with a lot of people, like eventually you can get people to kind of come over to your side of thinking and how things are, and then sometimes you can't, and it's a lost cause, and it is what it is. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I've tried a lot in the last little while. The people that really get riled up and hate in the comment section, whether it's YouTube or any of these other 800 social media platforms that are out there, let's try and engage in a different way with them and just be like, hey, you know, blah blah blah.
So when I'm feeling responsible, I do that, and when I'm feeling froggy, I just act like a smart ass.
And you know what? Sometimes like there'll be some people that are just absolute return trolls, and I handle them totally different. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So my wife, she comments. Like she doesn't edit any of my videos or anything, but she has an account and she'll comment. Like she has access to my account to comment.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And she doesn't have much of a filter. Like, honey,
I think I like her already. Yeah.
Like, maybe we need to tone this down. Like she told one person, we didn't know it was a kid. She said, well, to make a comment like that, you must have a little dick. And the guy's like, I'm 12. And I was like, we're going to have to delete that one, Kayla.
Let's go ahead and take that one down. Yeah, we'll just take that one down.
She kept going. She's like, well, if you're going to act like a big boy. Jesus. And okay.
Well, but you know, like, I mean, in all reality, though, too, and that's another thing that I try and talk to people a little bit about when I do, like, live talks and different stuff, or whatever. It's like 9 times out of 10, when you're talking to somebody on social media, you're talking to somebody that's talking really tough because they're behind a screen in their basement and they don't stand a chance of getting punched in the nose for saying what they say. But when you get across from people, you'll have a very different and honest conversation with people. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so that's an important thing. And there's a lot of people that that have tried to reach out to me or try to connect with that have a problem with what we do, or are always outspoken on my channel. I'll always just try and reach out to them and be like, you want to like podcast or Zoom or meet in person or something like that? Lots of my go-to things in the comment section is, why don't you come by Tufnell and I'll buy you a beer? And you know what? I've only had like 3 people take me up on it, kind of thing. But when you get across from somebody, you are dealing with a different human being.
Exactly.
And they're because all of a sudden they're accountable for what they're saying, right?
And it's a person. It's not a name.
Exactly. Yeah, and they can't Google and get some bogus study that they found and post a link to it and be like, well, this says this and this. Well, we're not getting anywhere here.
I've noticed some trolls on my accounts, like if I comment like a responsible adult and tell them like some facts, they'll completely change, flip script.
Yeah, man. Yeah, but, absolutely.
But not all.
Yeah. No, I hear you. But like, in the same sense, I've had people block me on social media for inviting them to Tufnell for a beer, kind of thing. And it's like,
perfect.
Okay. Easy done.
Showed me.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yep. Yeah. So like, it's just kind of it's like a wild rodeo on social media kind of thing. And you just kind of got to pay in for the ride, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's a little bit shitty. But in all honesty, like I get a lot more love than I do hate.
Same.
And you just for the hate, you just kind of got to have a big set of shoulders, and I got skin as thick as a pig. Like I mean, it takes a bit to get to me, but once you get to me, then I can get pretty rowdy.
I've had a couple. Like I don't care. People can say whatever they want about me, but when they start involving people that are just like in the video, that
100%. Yeah. Oh, it drives me crazy.
Like you don't need to talk about my kids or like
exactly.
my wife or guy working for us.
You want to throw shade at me? Let me have it or whatever, right? Yeah. And I've been pretty lucky. I don't put a lot of other people in my video, mostly for that reason. I get my dad in my videos all the time, his big mustache Al. Like, he doesn't have YouTube or know how to read comments anyway, so it doesn't matter, right? But like there's been one time, so I've got a young lady, just the loveliest lady on planet Earth. She's the daughter of our neighbors. I'm the neighbor's best friend. They've been my best friends for years, and their daughter is like we started doing this when she was 16, when I started doing merch. And it was during COVID, and you couldn't go anywhere, and she was all depressed and everything. And I was like, hey, let's go do a photo shoot with my merch, and we'll put it on the website. Because she's just a beautiful girl. And ever since, like, that's the only one that's allowed to model merch with me or whatever. But, like, all of a sudden you get people, ooh, who's the blonde and this and that. And that's, you want to get me to jump through the internet and find some son of a bitch and grab him by the fucking neck. Yeah, you talk shit about her. You know what I mean? Because I protect her like my daughter, right? And same goes with Mark, the owner of the bar, our ranch. Had his daughter do a spray video with me there or whatever, and you get a couple of stupid comments there. That shit drives me crazy. You know, but you want to talk me, hate on me. I don't give a shit, but you just leave everybody else the fuck alone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Or Dad, you can throw shade at Dad because he'll never see it.
Yeah, he doesn't.
He said, whatever.
Yeah. So you were mentioning the ranching side of things. Like when you were younger, do any rodeo or anything?
Yeah, I did a high school rodeo. And then so I was a team roper, header. Yeah.
I tried that once.
Is that right? How'd it go?
Not well.
You gotta practice at it a little bit.
I went to practice one time. How's that?
Okay, that works.
It was fun, but.
So it's great, but like what kind of led me to it is I was on a community pasture, and that's so.
Explain that.
So it's community lease. I don't know if you guys have it in the States, kind of thing.
Not Ohio. They're like western part of the country, possibly.
Yeah.
So I guess that's like Bureau of Land Management land.
It's Crown land that they bought. So it's the PFRA, the Prairie Farm Rehabilitation Act, and like it came in the dirty 30s. And they just got a whole bunch of Crown land and fenced it off and turned it into a grazing relief for farmers that didn't have any pasture for their cattle. And then they kept going after the 30s were over and everything started again. It was like a place where you could pay like right now I think it's around $1.30 a head or $1.30 a pair per day, and it's just community grazing. So it's Crown land. You pay to use Crown land's government owned or whatever. You pay to graze it, and they have a manager there that manages it, kind of thing. And then you turn your cattle out, and everybody takes them back home in the wintertime, kind of thing, or whatever. So you're basically renting graze land from the Crown. Okay. They discontinued it. I want to say it was 6 years ago. The timeline's irrelevant, but they discontinued it, and a lot of the patrons just got together and started them as a co-op, so they still operate basically the same. Yeah, but in the day, it was a federal government program. And everyone would bring their cattle there. So on the PFRA farm that we were on there was about 2,000 head, and we're basically custom grazers. And you'd go out every day on horseback, and you just keep checking fields. And you had a rotation that you'd go through these hundreds of acres of land or whatever, and just check. And anything that was sick, you'd rope and treat it and let it go. And it was just this straight up cowboy shit.
Just like cowboy shit.
Yeah, it was cowboy shit. Yeah, and so that's like kind of what got me into roping. And then we had an arena built at our place, and then we had a pen of steers or whatever, and we started team roping, and then I started rodeoing with it. And I did that until I graduated high school. And then once I got working, I was like, oh, hey, I can actually make money at this. I'm not like gambling with my money or whatever, right? Yeah. So, and you have to have a lot of time to do it, right? You got to have a lot of tack. You got to train your horses. You got to be there. And like me being away from home, it just wasn't working. So I kind of got out of it. Yeah. Gotcha. But I still dress like a cowboy, I guess. I don't know. I just didn't want to change my clothes. You know what I mean? So, but I mean, like we've got cattle now, and I don't ride that much anymore. And yeah, but I mean, still.
Four-wheeler's a little probably simpler, isn't it?
Yeah. But like to a certain extent, yes. But the other part of it is, I mean, with a four-wheeler, you're chasing them, yeah, it's easier. But then if they get in some tight bush and a bunch of different stuff, you can't get through there with a four-wheeler. But if you were on a horse, you'd just be able to snake your way through there, and it wouldn't be an issue.
But when you get back, you just turn your four-wheeler off.
You don't have to feed it. It doesn't buck you off. Well, most of the time it doesn't buck you off. Sometimes it does if you hit the wrong rock.
I got a bone chip right here tell me different.
Yeah, exactly, right? And yeah, it's just, but like it's there's something to it, something to do in that stuff on a horse. It's just like I like it better, just because you're more kind of connected to your history, to your roots, kind of thing. But yeah, it's just with a quad. I mean, you can just start the thing, put some gas in it, and away you go, right? And then you can shut it off, and then you don't have to touch it for 2 weeks, and it doesn't get out of the Quonset when you walk away from it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So there's always that, right? But yeah, it's just been neat, and I couldn't imagine not working with cattle. Even, you know, like they're an integral part of the grain part of our operation. You know, with fall grazing, and we use them for a little bit of stubble and weed management in the fall. And you know, obviously a cow shitting on your land is a good thing. And yeah, it's just we're going to be moving forward with some really cool stuff.
What breed of cattle you guys run?
So mine are actually predominantly a commercial Black Angus. It's a Black Angus Simmental cross. Mark runs it's a Horn Hereford Simmental Black Angus 3-way cross, and
so a lot of black and whites.
That's right. Yeah. So like the black calf with a white blaze face. They do really good at market in our neck of the woods. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of what we're after. That you get the odd brown one here and there, and it's just kind of a Heinz variety, but we're happy with all colors on the Bar Ranch. You know what I mean?
So I don't think a lot of people realize just how much ranching land there is in that part of Canada.
It's huge. Yeah.
Like I think most people, like me included, until I started looking at social media and talking to farmers in Canada, it's like, oh, it's the Rocky Mountains. That's all Canada.
Yeah,
that's the whole thing.
Yes, on the western part of Canada, it really is. But yeah, you get through. Actually, it's not far from the Rockies. When you come down out of the Rockies, just to the east of the Rockies, and you get between the Rockies and down into Calgary and farther south down to a lot of different places, basically to the Crow's Nest Pass kind of thing. When you come east out of there, basically halfway through Alberta, it is some of the most beautiful marginal ranch land. That's where they shoot Yellowstone. Is in southern Alberta, man.
See, I've heard this week 4 places they shoot Yellowstone. I still don't know where they shoot. I've heard Salt Lake City. I've heard parts of Montana. I've heard Canada now. Somebody else was telling me like something off the wall, like Wisconsin. I was like,
southern Alberta, my man. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe look it up, fact check me or whatever. But
where the hell's a train station?
I don't know, but I got a list of people that take there. You know what I mean? But yeah, anyways, it's beautiful ranch land in there. And then when you get up in our neck of the woods, the joke about Saskatchewan, the running joke about Saskatchewan in Canada is like, oh, you watch your dog run away for 3 days because it's flat and there's nothing there or whatever. Which is, you get into the southern parts of Saskatchewan, that is the case. It's very flat. You can see for a long ways. But when you're up in our neck of the woods, kind of north of 16, it's beautiful. Very marginal land, but lots of trees, and there's a lot of it that you can't farm. But if you got land that you can't farm, you put cattle on it. And it's we've got a lot of good graze land there, and we got a lot of water sources there. And then if you get up into northern Saskatchewan, like there's some of the most incredible fly-in fishing camps up there and everything. I mean, Saskatchewan kind of gets a bad name sometimes, but I mean, I think a lot of areas get bad names just based on 2 or 3 places that are there, and there's not like even where you're from, man, you can't tell me there's not beautiful parts of the state.
The whole state.
Yeah. Well, hey, I love hearing that. Yeah, exactly.
Ohio's great.
Yeah.
Wouldn't go anywhere else.
Yeah, no, I hear you. What's happening in Ohio there? I hear you guys have been running into some bad luck. Is it central Ohio where there's this fucking train fire and all this shit?
I found out about that last night at a bar, actually.
Oh, was that right?
Yeah. It's over by Pittsburgh, so we don't really claim that part of Ohio. My brother is a diehard Bengals football fan, and he hates Pittsburgh.
All right, fair enough. So your statement about the whole state is good, except the little part of it.
I guess.
Yeah. See, I fucking take people at their word, right? But yeah, no, man, it's it's cattle country, yeah, for sure, yeah. But I don't know, like I just love cattle and I like running them, and it's cool getting down here into the States because it's very populated down here, and like what we call the middle of nowhere, and what you guys call the middle of nowhere. When I'm like, this ain't the middle of nowhere. We just passed the fucking In and Out here a little while ago. What do you mean we're in the middle of nowhere? You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's.
I can take you some places in Ohio that there's a lot of people. They're not people you want to see. Very methy. Very methy.
Okay, I think that exists in Canada and a few places too. Yeah,
that smell you're smelling, it's meth. You just need to get the hell out of here.
I don't think I know the smell of meth.
It smells like body odor and bad decisions.
You basically just described the Shiho Bar, which is only 5 minutes away from where I live, but it's literally body odor and bad decisions. Yeah, not meth that I know of, anyways. I guess, right? Yeah.
So that area where you're from, I mean, what is the local economy like there? Is it very agricultural driven then?
Yeah, it's basically all ag. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there's it's all ag. We don't have oil and gas, we have no forestry where we're at. It's ag.
So where we live, like I said, we're right on the edge of farm country. Really, there's not a lot of ag-based jobs there. I mean, a lot of factories, timber industry's pretty big. You go a little bit further south, you get into coal country. First time I went to Iowa, I was like, everyone here has something to do with corn production.
I bet, yeah. You know what? I've been through Iowa, man, and that's,
like there's a grain mill at every 10 miles.
Yeah, which, I mean, it's like, I think that's a good thing. And I think that's one thing we're really missing. Excuse me, not missing, but I mean, it's kind of part of being in Canada is like there's so much fucking distance everywhere, right? Yep. And we depend on rail. where we're at to move all of our farming commodities to market. Just that we're starting to get a lot more local crushers when it comes down to canola. We've got a couple of local oat processors kind of thing, but when it really boils down to it, we got to ship everything a long ways.
That's how it is in our area. So every elevator you're going to find is along the railway.
Yeah.
Or you're taking it to the Ohio River and it's going to the Mississippi.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's fucking cool about the States too, is you guys use waterways here way better, but we don't have a lot because it's Saskatchewan. You know what I mean?
So is that part of the pothole region?
It's all potholes.
So you kill a lot of geese.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We've got birds, man. Yeah, we do have birds. We've got birds. We've got whitetail. We got mule deer. We got elk. We got moose. We got wildlife. Yeah.
I like to shoot ducks.
I do.
Yeah.
Come duck hunting sometime. Yeah. No.
Well, unfortunately, your duck season's like during harvest.
It's not very handy, right?
Probably like around August or September.
Exactly right. Yeah. And that's funny. That's because that's when everybody comes up and they're like, "Hey, can we come hunting on this field?" No, we're combining on it right now, and I don't want to get shot. You know what I mean? Yeah.
That's why I duck hunt, because our best time to hunt is usually December.
Oh, is that right?
It takes that long to get that far south usually.
Okay, right on. Yeah, but yeah, it's there's no shortage of wildlife, that's for sure. Yeah, but I mean,
so being that isolated and everything, I think you were touching on it earlier. A lot of the decisions for the whole country are being made probably around Ontario, Toronto area.
Yeah, it's a huge pet peeve of mine. I've done a few talks on it on some things around the Lloydminster area and Saskatoon kind of thing, but. You know what? That was a neat thing here today. That's you guys do you realize I think there was 14 states. The guy says it was 14 or 10 states that are actually north of the southern part of Ontario, Canada. So
I believe that.
Yeah,
I've talked to so many people at this meet and greet from Ontario, and they're like, "Oh, it's 6 hours."
It's not far, man. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I forget. Lake Erie's not that big. It's just on the other side of it.
Yeah, man. But so basically, all federal government policy that's made in Canada is decided from a line that falls even below some of your northern states. So we've got somebody in eastern Canada that's basically below the 49th parallel that's making decisions for us that are way up in Tufnell, Saskatchewan. Well, that doesn't work with. And when they say they try and drive ag policy and make ag policy. They say, well, we consider 40 temperate zones across the country of Canada when we make these policies or whatever. And I was like, okay, fuckers, I live in the county of 276 at Foam Lake, and from the north end of 276 to the south end of 276, we farm different. And you're telling me that you took 40 zones in Canada and you're like, here's what the policy's going to be. How does that work?
Yeah.
It doesn't, right? The other thing I'll say about ag policy, I can't name drop because I don't have permission or whatever, but somebody that is very, very involved in making ag policy in Agriculture and Agri-Foods Canada, I met at a convention, and I threw out a video about combining here a little while ago, and she messaged me on social media privately and said, I'll never say it publicly, the amount of stuff I learn about farming from your videos is incredible. And I'm like, you're a policy writer. What do you mean you're learning about agriculture from my videos? I think that's an issue in government. Is somebody in government should have been there and should know what's going on, and we shouldn't have to learn from a YouTube video of a guy named Quick Dick about how agriculture works. You know what I mean? So there's ground to be made on shit like
that's
that.
That's one thing. Every politician, and I know, in our area, Trump was huge. Ohio was 60% Donald Trump, in the last election. He's still so disconnected. Anyone these people think is going to solve all their problems is so disconnected and has no idea any of them.
Yeah, straight up. But even in Canadian politics, we've got Justin Trudeau in right now, who's just completely decimating the country with identity politics, and it's gross. But the guy that's hopefully going to take him down, Pierre Poilievre. There's some of the stuff that the guys, I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And then, half the other stuff he says, I'm like, oh, fuck. You know what I mean? It's just there's no real answer for it. But I think that's a big thing, and where I think, we need to bring it down. And, smaller government's expensive, but I think smaller government's more effective. And by smaller, I mean, more local. You know what I mean? We should have federal government. I get why we have it, and just in the States here, why you guys have federal governments, but it should be more on the power of the state of what works better for the state.
Yeah, especially when you're talking, I know in Europe they talk about it, but Europe, European country will fit in like a couple states or one
Straight
province.
up, man. Yeah.
It's like, you can make decisions for that amount of area because it's so small.
You all get the same weather. You know what I mean? Yeah.
You're dealing with the same problems. Like California, completely different from Florida. Or, well, maybe. California, completely different from Ohio. Or
straight up, man.
Or Ontario,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I totally agree. And, like, that's even, we get this thing. Oh, man, this is going to get really Canada and Saskatchewan. We got this thing called SARM. It's the Saskatchewan Association of Rural Municipalities, right? Okay. And so it's basically all the counties. We call them rural municipalities, but we'll call them counties so everyone understands what I'm talking about. There's a whole bunch of little counties that are in the province of Saskatchewan. And then there's this association where all these counties get together and they kind of try and like make decisions, share what's working good with everybody. And there's a lot of people that are against it because they're like, well, it's expensive. And I was like, but the effectiveness of having somebody that can manage your tiny little county is effective because they can make a difference within their county and the people that they represent. Like, that's how government should work.
Yeah.
You should never have a person in Canada, or how it works, you should never have a person from Washington, D.C. telling you in Ohio how you're going to manage your farm.
Right. Well, I don't know, but so you have a congressman from Ohio. They're in Ohio like 5 days.
Shit, exactly, right?
Yeah, you know exactly what's going on. Meanwhile, you haven't had a permanent address here in 10 years.
You have no clue. Yeah. Oh, yeah. See, and that's, so I think we share that a lot. I think that's where there's a lot in common with U.S. and Canada, right? It's just, they're big countries. We do a lot of shit, and I think it's important that you're governed or rules are made or policies are made, directly to your little area, because every little area is different.
Yeah.
Now, that can be inefficient, too, so you got to be able to know where to draw the line between, okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, I get, like, you should have reciprocity for a driver's license. That makes sense.
Straight up, man. Yeah, and when you get into federal stuff, like when you that's the thing I think that we have that's good in Canada.
That's the wrong word.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, but like what we have in Canada, like we have the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, which is basically a federal police service, and I think like that's one thing that you can do where laws can be the same across Canada. That's fine. Like. Don't kill anybody. Yeah, that goes everywhere. You know what I mean? Unless they're sneaking into your farmhouse in rural Saskatchewan.
Are you allowed to shoot them though? Do you shoot, or do you have to throw a knife? How's it work in Canada now?
They actually you have to shoot them with a dart gun first. Is how it works. No, there's been a lot of different situations in Canada where there's been some trespassing situations where a guy shot at a person and killed them, where they've gone to jail shooting a trespasser or somebody that was breaking into their house. And there's been other instances where they haven't, and I think that's something where we need to try and make. We've got a lot of ground to make up in Canada on that, because in rural areas in Canada, I don't know what it would be like here in a lot of rural areas, but like there's times where I've done actually a video on it. It was on the gun ban issue that's going on in Canada.
I think I remember seeing that.
Yeah,
one.
But like there's like.
Is that the one where you walked out with your shotgun? You weren't allowed to use it or something?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I just shot at him with a .22, and then eventually I just handed the criminal a fucking lunch and everything. Yeah, but like that's an issue, right? Because we're just outside of 20 miles from town. And then with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in Canada right now, there's a lot of situations where if it's a dangerous situation, there's maybe an active shooter or a hostile situation, they're not allowed to go without backup. And so, like by the time you get them from somebody from another town, they coordinate and get to where you're going. I mean, we might be 40 minutes. I'm not trying to disparage the RCMP. I mean, we got some great, police servicemen and women that put their life on the line every day. But I mean, they're going to be 40 minutes before they get there.
Right.
Well, shit, man, a lot can happen in 40 minutes.
So that's one thing that's strange. I mean, I guess interesting. Much more populated area, and much more populated area. Similar though.
Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we're 15 minutes from town. There might be we have a pretty decent sized deputy sheriff force, but I mean, my house caught on fire a couple years ago, and I put it out. Shit. Fire department never showed up.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Finally, I called him back. I was like, "Hey, we can cancel it."
Yeah,
now.
you know what? Cancel the call.
Yeah. So
it's I just I kind of wish days for days of a justice system where you can step back and look at the whole situation and what's gone on, and be like, if I fucking popped a guy because it was either me or him, I don't want the law to have to come down to me. No, I know you're gonna die if you didn't do anything, but you're still gonna have to go to jail anyways.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, I think that's where society can get a little bit fucked up. But I think that's where we've lost a lot of the old school stuff out of society, where it needs to be okay to be a little bit old school and redneck every now and then. You know what I mean? Because it keeps people fucking honest. You know, so yeah, I don't know. It's a really crazy system of what we got. You know, in regards to firearms and trespassing and stuff in Canada, kind of thing. But I mean,
so are you guys allowed to own handguns anymore?
You are allowed to own handguns, but you are not allowed to buy, sell, or transfer handguns.
So whatever's there is there.
So if you've got it right now, you've got it. And if you die, that is then property of the government if you die.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's fucked. It's retarded.
Jesus.
Yeah. But, like, the bigger issue with that is, I mean, even if you just look at the GTA, like sort of Greater Toronto area, so like Metro Toronto, 89% of the crimes committed there are with smuggled firearms.
Can't imagine that.
Yeah, like we have the biggest land border that exists on the planet with our biggest customer for illegal firearms, which is the U.S. because we got way stricter gun laws in Canada than the U.S. So a lot of AR platforms, handguns and stuff that you guys can have in the States here, they haven't been allowed in Canada for years. They've got strict gun laws already, and that's why I do a lot of my videos on guns. I was like, just don't. Why are you fucking around with the laws? Just start enforcing them. Like that's the problem that we have, right? So 89% of the guns that are there are guns that criminals got off the black market or whatever, right? Because we have a huge land border, and I was just saying this earlier here today because somebody asked me the same question, but Canadian Border Services in the last 4 years have reported seizing 0 contraband on trains that enter Canada because they have no way to check them. like, is that not a big problem? You know, like,
it takes hours to go across customs, but you can just take a train.
Yeah, but so like, here's the problem that I have is like me, Quick Dick McDick and Tough No, I'm the fucking criminal that's taking my gun with a trigger lock in a locked case to a government-approved firing range to shoot it, and then transporting it back home the same. They want that to stop, but they're just going to let trains keep coming.
You can't shoot at your own house?
No. You cannot shoot a handgun at your own house in Canada. Unless your house is a government.
How many neighbors you got though?
Not many.
Okay.
But I would never break the law, right? Actually, I lost most of my guns that they're banning in Canada in a tragic boat accident. So
same. I've lost. So recently, pistol braces became a thing in the United States. And mine fell in a boat.
That's unfortunate. I got to be careful on boats. Yeah, and I can't swim that well either. You know what I mean? Because my mom couldn't afford to put me through swimming lessons.
I'm still not. It's probably cold up there too.
I'm still not allowed through a dugout, anywhere near a dugout. I'm not allowed to go near it. Yeah, but yeah, it's Canada, so there's like 8 feet of ice on them half the year, anyways. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now that's crazy. And one thing that I find interesting about that, there's a lot of parts of the population of the United States that want our gun laws to move, more towards what you guys have.
Yeah.
And they don't see the problems with it. And like I just said, I mean, a response time in my area, at least 20 minutes probably.
Yeah.
And a drug addict isn't going to wait 20 minutes in the cops. They're just going to kill you and take all your stuff.
Yeah. No, like that's exactly. We just had a homicide here lately in Saskatchewan there where it was 3 armed individuals broke into a house and they wound up killing a guy and injuring his wife or whatever kind of thing, and they're still on their own. Nobody can find them. Well, was the guy in his house the problem? No, he wasn't the fucking problem, But I've always been down the lane of making something illegal isn't going to make the problem go away.
Right.
Even if you look at contraband, like drugs, big fentanyl problems, and all, like we were talking about meth earlier. You know what I mean? But like making something illegal doesn't make it stop from happening. It just increases the black market on it, right? If you want to combat the problem, you need to work on the problem, not just trying to make laws to make the problem go away. It's already a bunch of fucking criminals doing it. Deal with the criminals, right? But like we're starting to get into a society now where it's lots of people are like, you know what, I really don't want to go be a cop because I can't do anything anyways. I'm not allowed to do anything. I'm going to spend more time doing paperwork and getting drugged through courts and being told I'm being unfair to this person and this person and this person, and the criminal gets in and walks out, and I just finished putting them in jail in the police station, and 12 hours later you're going to get a coffee and there's that fucker I just put in jail. What the fuck are you doing out here, right? Yeah, so like I got a lot of respect for law enforcement, and
the last 3 years had been terrible.
I just can't imagine. But yeah, and that's turning into a big problem. And we're thinking it's not easy because we can't find workers to be on a farm, but the RCMP in Canada can't find candidates,
Right.
And shit, I don't blame them, right?
Well, I don't know about in Canada, but during COVID in the United States, huge uptick in gun sales. Like when all these riots started going on and police weren't responding to, like I'm talking about the BLM riots. And stuff,
for sure. Yeah.
Or protests.
Yeah. Protests. Yeah.
When those were going on, you know, police weren't going in there.
Yeah.
I mean, huge upticks in firearm sales, and especially in liberal cities, by people that were probably very anti-gun.
Yeah, that's
that's kind of odd.
Yeah.
How you need a firearm?
Yeah, exactly. But it's kind of neat when, neat or whatever you want to call it. But like even when they came down with C-21 and then they did the OIC ban on handguns, I know places, I know guys that own sporting goods shops there that sell handguns, and they were like, that's the biggest sales pitch anybody's ever done for us ever, because everybody went out and just bought what was there.
One thing I found interesting during COVID, it was hard to get ammo. It wasn't guns that were hard to get ammo.
Yeah,
it wasn't guns that were hard to find. It was ammo.
Yeah,
and I've always thought if they really wanted to get creative, that's the way.
Right? I mean, keep your guns. You just can't get any ammo for it. We better shut up. We're giving them ideas here.
Hell, they've already thought about it. Alexa told him when I said it at my house, probably.
You know what? The good thing that they did with Alexa is they at least gave her kind of a moderately sexy voice. You know what I mean? Have you ever checked voicemail in in Saskatchewan? You got this thing called SaskTel, and they got a female's voice on the phone or whatever when you're trying to check your voicemail, and it's like the most monotone, unattractive voice on planet Earth. I was like, couldn't you give me something like Alexa or something?
I think you've been in Canada too long. You think Alexa has an attractive voice. Side note: my kids have an Alexa, and they think it's hilarious to ask Alexa to fart because she'll make a fart noise. There's like 30 of them.
So you haven't taught them to pull your finger trick yet? Or like, come on, man.
Sometimes they just, Alexa, fart.
I think your kids and I would get along pretty good. I could listen to that for a while. Oh, shit, that's funny, man.
Yep. Hey, man, I better get you out of here. I'm sure you got a busy day.
Yeah.
I appreciate you making time to come out here and do this.
Good to meet you, and thanks for giving me the opportunity, and good to see you. Thanks for the beer, man. Hell, that was awesome.
No problem. You can't have a podcast without beer. That's
cool. Shit, that's exactly it, right? Yeah.
Where can everybody find your material?
Be careful when you Google this, but Quick Dick McDick. And that's on YouTube. I'm Quick Dick McDick on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok, I think. And then on Instagram, I'm QD McDick because they wouldn't let me have Quick Dick McDick on Instagram.
Bastards.
Fucking losers. Yeah. But that's where I'm at. And yeah, if you Google it, I'm sure you can find me somewhere. And quickdickmcdick.ca. I got a whole bunch of Canadian made merch that occurred out of there or whatever, and try and get a list of shows where I'm going to be. And,
well, dude, I appreciate your content. Most of it makes me laugh hysterically.
Well, that's the point of it. Yeah.
It's awesome. So.
Right on. Appreciate it. Good to meet you, man.
All right. Sounds good, man. See you.